Hello my friends and welcome. There are lots of the kaboom news for today. For example, Russia lost two of the tankers of the Shadow fleet in the Black Sea. The operation was conducted by Ukrainian SBU with the help of the drone boats. They hit those vessels. Precisely, it happened not far away from the Turkish coast, but in neutral waters. Tankers Kairos and Virat were hit. They were not registered officially in Russia, but they were working for Russia, fully transporting Russian oil elsewhere. They were going to Novorossiysk port. They were empty, so there's no huge oil spillage. With its operations, Ukraine tries to avoid ecological disasters, especially near the coasts of our partners, like, for example, Turkey. So this is before and this is after. The vessel was hit actually during the night time at first, and this morning one more drone hit one of those tankers once again. Yes, you might say that it's the escalation of the war to the other participants, and you are correct. This war has already been escalated. For example, 10 days ago, Russia hit the Turkish vessel in Ukrainian port very close to Romania. Well, now Ukraine applied some of the sanctions on the Russian oil, as you may see, very, very successfully. Yeah, unfortunately, some of the oil spilled, but it's the oil used by the tanker itself. Yes, we understand it's bad, but there is no choice for Ukraine. It should stop the Russian oil export because that is how Russia obtains money for its military. Yeah, one of the ships was definitely damaged significantly. Tanker Virat also sustained the damages. There was no fire, as you may see on this one, but there are lots of the holes. You can see those a little bit above the water line. That what kept this vessel floating. And again, it tells the tankers were empty. They were going to Novorossiysk for refueling. By the way, the port of Novorossiysk was also hit yesterday by Ukraine. Well, what can I say here? Judging on those damages, it seems like those tankers are, in a way, more robust compared to the Russian military ships. But the other tanker, as you can see, it wasn't that like it. All of the construction was cancelled by fire, including technical compartment. All of the compartments of the ship, it is no-go, it will be scrapped. The crew of one of the vessels declared Mayday, so emergency situation. It was shown in one of the Turkish TV shows.
1-4, east, I need help. Drone attack, please help.
And I can state with 100% probability that the guy who is calling is Russian. A Russian accent calling for help. Well, Ukraine helps as it can. You see, Ukraine cannot help to everyone at once. That's why one by one, little by little, today, for example, two of the vessels were helped by Ukraine. Tomorrow, maybe more. Maybe Russian military also needs some help from Ukrainian drones, and Ukraine is capable to do it, to present this help. By the way, about sailors, they were evacuated. There were lots of the Chinese nationals as well as Russians. The main issue here for the Russian vessels that officially Russia cannot respond on that. They cannot go, for example, to United Nations and scream, "Oh, Ukraine is hitting our vessels, our tankers, it's so bad." Because officially those ships, they do not belong to Russia, but they operate for Russian companies transporting the Russian oil. What Russia may do is to continue to strike Ukrainian infrastructure that it is doing for already many years, so nothing new here. Well, I think that our allies, they understand that Ukraine applies those sanctions to cut Russian oil supplies. One more big problem for Russia are contractors and companies who operate transporting Russian oil. You see, because of the Ukrainian drone boats and Ukrainian strikes on port infrastructure, they have huge risks to operate. After all, they don't want to lose their tankers and their crew. And also there are some of the insurance companies who continue to operate even for the Russian Shadow oil fleet. So imagine the price for that insurance. That's what Ukraine is aiming for, to make it very dangerous for any sort of the commercial ships to operate in Russian ports. By the way, about the ports, Novorossiysk terminal for the pipeline was hit. So now Russians again stop the operation of its main port in the Black Sea. Yeah, usually it happens like that. This video was filmed from Novorossiysk roughly 15 days ago. So the main idea for Ukraine is to perform those strikes regularly. Once in 2 weeks, once in a month, but they should be successful every time, at least a little bit, but successful. That's the Russian oil refinery Afimsky, one of the biggest ones in Russia. It was yesterday visited by Ukrainian drones. As usual, there are lots of the videos published by eyewitnesses. At first there was small flame, but later on it started to spread around the facility. So it's understandable that with disruption of the Russian refinery and oil distribution capabilities, Russian economy doesn't obtain enough funds. And to get the money for its army and military, Russia even started to sell gold. I got this information from you, my friends, from my followers in the comments. Thank you for putting attention on that. So Russia's central bank started selling physical gold from reserves. It is not the gold from the sovereign wealth fund. There's not enough gold. They start to just sell the gold from the central bank, the gold which is used to maintain ruble as a currency. So even though now the Russian economy is more or less floating, but it may decline very rapidly in the coming years. But so far, even with selling gold, Russia is preparing for the long-lasting war. For the next year, it's going to be a record military budget for Russia. The documents have already been signed. According to it, Russia will spend $166 billion for the war against Ukraine. 166 billion. The Ukrainian military support is several times lower, and this war is about resources, so Russia will continue to take the ground no matter what. Yeah, of course, the Russian economy will decline. It cannot continue forever, but Putin is using all of the available resources to maintain his army first of all. It means that he is oriented to continue this war. Well, yesterday Russia also hit Ukrainian infrastructure. They launched lots of the drones, hundreds of those, also cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. The main goal for Russia was the energy infrastructure of the Kyiv city, capital of Ukraine. Again, there are lots of the blackouts and the strikes on the Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. Even some of the residential buildings were hit, and there are even some of the casualties. So Ukraine has the right to strike any sort of the ships in the Black Sea that continue to cooperate with Russia and finance the Russian war machine. If any sort of the company works with Russia, it is a legitimate target for Ukraine. Almost in every of those attacks, Russia hits the Starokonstantinov military airfield, and yesterday they launched the hypersonic missiles Kinjal, but they were not that precise. Here are the latest images. Missiles hit somewhere at the perimeter, but not exactly the part of the infrastructure of the airfield itself. So maybe those missiles are definitely fast, they're hard to intercept, but they're also in lack of precision, and we may see it judging on those satellite images from Ukrainian military airfield Starokonstantinov. The precision of Kinjal is maybe even worse than Flamingo, but Flamingo costs $500,000. Kinjal, you understand, yeah, the price. All of that shows that the project for hypersonic missile, it doesn't really work for Russians at least. United States, China, they also developed their hypersonic weaponry, but they're not in that rush as Russians were. Russian military spent lots of the funds for Kinjal, but you see the effectiveness is not great. Well, if it carries a nuclear warhead, in this case it doesn't really matter, plus minus 1 kilometer, but the conventional warhead, it absolutely doesn't work for Russians, which is good. Alright, let's go to Ukrainian strikes once again. This is the Saki airfield of Crimea. This is the Russian air defense, looks like Tor, that was hit. This is Panzer 1S, the same airfield, and one more. What is here? This is the control tower. Russians try to intercept Ukrainian drones on the way. I see the aircraft over there, maybe fighter jet, but it doesn't help. Ukrainian drone continue its way to hit lots of the infrastructure out there. Well, it was, I guess, a successful strike on territory of Saki. The Saki airfield is over here, not far away from Yevpatoria. I guess we should switch to the satellite image. You can see the runway. It was hit, by the way, even in 2022. It was the first ground operation of Ukrainian Neptune missiles. Then Russia lost many of the airplanes and also ammunition storage. Since that time, Saki airfield was hit several of the times, and the most recent one happened a couple of days ago. The video that I showed you, Russia lost several of the air defense systems and the other military units. Crimea is under the strikes almost every day. Just military infrastructure, just military. Well, if I open this map, let's go to the frontline updates. Russians moved a little from Rivna-Pilya. It was yesterday, it is today, a little bit advancing, and plus they moved from Zeleny High, which they occupied pretty much fast. They're very close to Gulai Pole. The fight for the settlement will start maybe even the next week, we'll see. Yeah, sorry guys for my voice, I think I got sick a little. And thank you guys for your support, by the way, of my job. I film every day, and it is possible because of your kind support on Patreon and also on membership of the channel. The link for Patreon is in the video description below. If you don't have the opportunity to support me in that way on Patreon, no problem, just press your like to this video and subscribe for the channel. It matters a lot. Thank you guys, you're the best, you're awesome. Let's continue. The Mirnograd and Pokrovsk direction, there was a light movement of the Russian army, but deep state military map doesn't specify it. I'm gonna check another map in a minute. Well, here in Dobropilya direction, Ukrainian army was finally successful. It was officially declared that there is no anymore presence of the Russian army in this northern side, maybe together with this tree line. Well, it was announced by Ukrainian military command that this attack that happened in August was completely cancelled by the capable Ukrainian armed forces. And you see, Ukraine still holds in Mirnograd even. Wow, that's awesome. Well, this update comes from Mayakovsk, and you can see that Russians gained just a little territory. They moved towards Rik part of Pokrovsk, and all of those arrows, they're everywhere. Those are the Russian infiltration attempts. But Ukraine also has the move in a counterattack. The idea is to keep this bottleneck open. I would say this entire area is the gray one. I'm really surprised that our guys are holding in Mirnograd and Pokrovsk for such extended period of time, guys. It is just a miracle, and only possible because of our defenders, their spirit, their heroism. But it is understandable that after all, Russia will occupy Mirnograd and Pokrovsk. It is imminent. But how much time and how many losses Russia spent for it, it is crazy. Yeah, Mayakovsk Analytic also confirms the Russian advancement from Vysoke and from Rivna-Pilya, the same as Deep State military map. Well, those are the only updates we have from the front lines, which is more or less okay. I see that the pace of the general Russian advancement slowed down gradually. Also in Zaporizhia, Russia used to move faster. Well, maybe they're getting closer to the main Ukrainian defense line and they're forced to slow down. About the good news from the front lines, we have them coming from Ivanivka, the confirmation that the Ukrainian armed forces cleared this village completely from the presence of the Russian army. So for 100%, Russians were thrown away behind the river of Vovcha. Awesome news, and we have the confirmation about it coming from the Deep State military map analytics, and Ukraine was capable to imprison some of the Russian soldiers. Yeah, it's like that. Some of them managed to get the civilian clothes not being recognized as Russians, but finally they were discovered even with that new amplitude. As for the frontline images, well, some of them I cannot show you. I will share those on Telegram, but the vehicles I can show you. This is the Russian T-72 tank that was kaputted on the way to Pokrovsk direction. It was hit kind of far away behind the front lines, at least 10 kilometers. So Russians are unable even to reach their own positions. In Pokrovsk, they're being kaputted on the way. Yeah, as for the infantry images, I cannot show you, but those are the plums created by Ukrainian drone strikes. Russians are trying to cross those rails in Pokrovsk itself. Yeah, Russians also operate behind those rails, but just occasionally. They cannot deploy their forces fully. Even before the rails, it's the problem. But in the northern side, it's almost impossible for them to stay for a long time because they're being identified and hit by Ukrainian drones. A very unique video was shared from the front lines. This is the Ukrainian drone platform equipped with the Browning M2 machine gun, and it was capable to stop the Russian MTLB vehicle. Here is the vehicle. It goes like that, and it was stopped, really. The vehicle passed, the drone turned and smashed it from behind. This is crazy, guys. Real drone wars are out there. We're not far away from complete drone wars. I'm telling you, like in 10 years, maybe 15, something like that, there will be less, way less infantry at the front lines. Guys, there were some other news, but I don't want to make this particular video very long. I'm tired, I need to sleep. So about political stuff and those negotiations, I'm gonna speak tomorrow, okay? Also with Frontline update, Kaboom update, I hope as usual. And we also gonna look through the international affairs, but long story short, no surprise, Russia wants just to continue the war. Donald Trump doesn't see it, he wants to make business as usual, and this story never ends. There's lots of the talking around peace deals, peace plans, negotiations, but you know what is happening, yeah? Russia has increased its military budget for the next year gradually. It doesn't want to stop, absolutely. And for Ukraine, it's important to keep its country sovereign, independent. Yes, Russia will push Ukraine harder than this year, but I think Ukraine may handle it after all. And the yesterday's news about Yermak, that he was dismissed, it is really encouraging for Ukraine, for Ukrainian people, and even for military. There are so many positive comments about it. So I'm very happy about possible transformation for good in Ukrainian government and in Ukraine as a country. And my friends, please support my job if you can. The link for my Patreon is in the video description just below, or you may join membership, the button for join somewhere over here, yeah. And if you don't have this opportunity, you may just press like to this video and subscribe for the channel to propel the video in YouTube algorithms. Thank you so much. But anyways, your support on Patreon really matters because you make this content possible, my friends. Thank you so much also. Guys, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.